The church doors swung open like they didn't want to, like even the wood was ashamed. Eli Hart stepped inside with dust on his boots and a storm in his eyes. The townsfolk turned their heads as if he'd dragged a rattlesnake down the aisle. At the front stood Maybelle Crow, thin as winter, hands trembling under lace that didn't fit right. Her bouquet looked borrowed, her smile looked forced. Every man in town had already refused her, and the women had whispered reasons like they were praying. She's cursed, they said. She's used, they said. Eli walked past the pretty girls in bright dresses, past the rich rancher's daughter, past every easy choice. He stopped in front of Maybelle like it was the only place he'd ever meant to stand. The preacher blinked, confused. Eli's voice cut through the air, low and steady. I'm here for her. Gasps hit the room like gunshots. Maybelle's eyes lifted, wide, frightened, desperate, not hope, not yet. Eli offered his hand like a promise he couldn't take back. She hesitated, like kindness was a trap. Then her fingers touched his, cold as river stone. The whole town watched like they were waiting for him to regret it. But Eli didn't flinch. He held on tighter, like the world could burn and he'd still choose her. They rode out of town under a sky the color of bruises. No wedding music followed them, only the creak of saddle leather and the cruel silence of people who wanted the story to end ugly. Maybelle sat behind him, stiff as if she was afraid the horse could feel her shame. Eli didn't ask questions at first. He didn't push, he just guided the reins and let the wind do the talking. At the edge of the prairie, a rock flew from somewhere near the saloon and cracked against Eli's shoulder. He didn't even turn. Keep your eyes forward, he told her, voice tight but calm. Another rock hit the dirt beside the horse. A man shouted, "You'll regret taking that one." Maybelle flinched so hard she nearly slipped. Eli caught her wrist without hesitation and held it like he was anchoring her to life. When they reached his ranch, it wasn't grand, just a hard place built by harder hands. Inside, she hovered by the doorway, waiting to be ordered, punished, used. Eli set a clean cup on the table, poured water, and slid it toward her. "This is your home," he said. She stared like the words didn't make sense. "Why?" she whispered, broken. Eli's jaw clenched as if he'd swallowed fire. "Because they don't get to decide what you're worth," he said. And for the first time, her eyes filled, not with fear, but with something dangerously close to belief. That night, Maybelle woke screaming, tangled in sheets like they were chains. Eli was there in seconds, not touching her, not crowding, just kneeling near the bed like a guard at the gates of hell. Moonlight painted her face pale and haunted. She shook, gasping, eyes unfocused like she was still trapped in another place. "Don't," she begged, shrinking back. Eli froze instantly, hands raised. "I won't," he promised. His voice cracked on the words, not from weakness, but from rage held in check. She wiped her cheeks with trembling fingers, ashamed of the sound she'd made. "You shouldn't have chosen me," she whispered. "I'm ruined." Eli's eyes turned dark, dangerous. He stood and walked to the window, staring out at the land like it was a battlefield. "Ruined ain't a woman," he said slowly. "Ruined is what men do to her." Silence filled the room, thick as smoke. Maybelle swallowed hard. "They said I'd bring you death," she said. Eli turned back, stepping closer, still careful. "Then I'll die stubborn," he replied. Outside, coyotes howled. Inside, something shifted. She looked at him, really looked, and saw it. He wasn't saving her because she was easy to love. He was loving her because the world tried to crush her, and he refused to let it win. Her tears fell quietly, and Eli stayed there until her breathing finally softened, like he'd been waiting his whole life to protect that one fragile piece. By morning, the Wild West came riding straight to their door. Sheriff Colton and 3 men from town arrived with cold smiles and hands hovering near their holsters. "We heard you married trouble," Colton said, eyes sliding to Maybelle like she was dirt. Maybelle's body went rigid. Eli stepped in front of her without thinking, blocking every hateful stare. "She's my wife," he said, calm as a grave. Colton smirked. "A man can change his mind." Eli's hand rested near his belt, not on a gun, on a folded marriage paper. "Not this man," he said. Colton leaned closer, voice poisonous. "You don't know what she did. You don't know what she is." Maybelle's throat tightened. The old shame clawed up her spine, begging her to surrender. Eli didn't even blink. "I know what you did," he said, and the air snapped. The men shifted uneasily. Eli's voice grew colder. "I know you let her suffer because it was easier than standing up. I know you spit on her name to hide your own." Colton's face hardened. "You're making an enemy of this town." Eli nodded once. Then I'll bury love in enemy ground and let it grow anyway. He reached back without looking and took Maybelle's hand. This time, she didn't hesitate. Her fingers wrapped around his like a vow. The sheriff stared, realizing he couldn't scare a man who'd already chosen hell for her. The men rode away, but the war wasn't over. Eli pulled Maybelle closer, his voice low, fierce, unshakable. They can try to bury us, he said. But they'll learn something. She looked up, tears shining, heart trembling with a new kind of strength. What? She whispered. Eli held her hand like it was his last breath. Love don't stay buried.